Hi everyone, welcome back. This is Den the Dev. I'm Den, and welcome back to Learn Agile Practices. This is again our weekly Pomodoro together, 25 minutes every week, where I share with you my thoughts, new learning, new ideas related to Agile technical practices and software development in general. Today, I want to face an important topic with you with this new English episode, and I want to discuss about some hiring approach and in general about what we should expect from different levels of seniority when hiring a software developer. Before jumping into the topic, let's first take care of all the usual things in social media. So please subscribe to the channel if you're on YouTube, or share the episode with everyone you think might be interested, or leave a comment to let me know what you think once you've heard my thoughts. And remember to follow me on LinkedIn, where I daily share content and ideas about software development in general, especially Agile technical practices. Now, I'll leave you with the jingle and then we start. Okay, so welcome everyone again, and we are here with this, I think, very hard and complex topic that I'm facing this year in a very deep way because I joined a new company in October and I'm the technical leader of the team. We are internalizing the development team and we are hiring to bring the first two people in the team, two seniors. So it was a time for me to, in retrospective, about what I learned about this job, about strategies that I've met in the past in my previous companies, or strategies I've read about. And in general, when you're hiring, you need to decide which level of seniority you should expect based on your needs, your ideas on how to work and which kind of team you want to have, and also, of course, the budget you can put on the table. So in the specific, it was a time for me to reflect about what we should expect and also how the hiring process should change based on the seniority level we want to aim for. And today I want to share my thought with you. I will start with the junior roles, then moving to mid and senior roles, and a couple of words also on the new, let's say new staff role that is beyond senior in theory, and some thought on that. So let's start with a bold and clear statement, right? I already said it, but I want to highlight this thing. It's fundamental that we adapt and change our hiring process based on the seniority level we expect and we want to hire, right? For example, we will deep dive into that for every seniority level. But for example, I think we should treat differently the technical exercise, the home assignment. We should treat it very differently based on the seniority. Of course, the expectations are different, but also the way we treat the exercise should be different. And also the technical interview should be very, very different, in my opinion. So we also should have, anyway, different expectations. So let's deep dive into every kind of label we gave to seniority in these years, right? So starting from juniors, every one of us was a junior at first, right? Every one of us started from nothing, started from scratch. Even those that studied a bit more or made some personal experience before working, they are still juniors because they don't have experience in a company and in a business context with all the constraint that comes from developing software in a business. So every one of us was a junior, and we should remember that and helping junior the way we would have wanted to be helped when we were juniors. But leaving this aside, if I had to hire a junior, what I would expect more would be the curiosity and willing to learn and improve faster. I would search for a proactive person that can easily grow in the company. I also expect adaptability because I don't think you should already have bold opinions. As a junior, you should be open. You should always be open-minded, right? But as a junior, you should be totally open-minded, and you should try to understand also where are your strengths, where you have points of improvement, what you like to do, what you don't like, and how to live with the things you don't like to do because you probably need to do it anyway. So you still have to learn not only the job itself, but how to work in the context and in a team. So that's what I would look for also. And another thing would be someone that is as not as that feels good in sharing new ideas, even if they are maybe weird ideas. But junior people have almost zero bias on the, at least in the context of developing software as a job. So they can have weird ideas sometimes, but those weird ideas might still be good and might even sparkle something in a more experienced people, and maybe a better idea that still was sparked by the interaction that we had with a junior. So this is super, super important. Coming to an interview, if I had to set up an interview for a junior role, I would definitely try to put them in, let's say, real world exercise. I hate the complex exercises in general, so I aim always to give and provide no more than half a day length for the exercise. For sure, never more than a day should be invested in the kind of exercise that I provide. And exercises are always just a tool to have a discussion in the technical interview then. But the more junior is the role, the more I expect to see something that is worth the technical interview in the exercise, right? What I expect is that the exercise works somehow. I probably don't care how. It's a junior role, so I expect that they don't have all the skills that I might expect from a senior, right? So they might miss some best practice, some design pattern, some security issue, anything. But if the software works, that's already a good point, in my opinion, for a junior. What I expect from a junior in the end is that he can create software that works. And then we can work together as a team to make sure that that software that works can also be safe, tested, easy to maintain, easy to read, and everything that a junior doesn't even probably know that it's needed, right? So that would be my expectation. And as I said, the exercise would probably be something real and something full stack, because I would never search for a junior front end or junior backend, to be honest. I would always expect some full stack openness, at least. Of course, you can be a junior and already have a clear idea. Maybe you are going through your process to become a mid, let's say. It's not that you kind of become something. It's not like Pokemon evolutions, but I mean, you already have some experience, so you are becoming something more, right? And you might already have decided that you prefer backend or frontend. But in a junior role, I still expect that might be something full stack. So I would go for a simple full stack exercise. And the only important thing would be that it works and that it have maybe respected the, I would probably also provide more constraint just to make sure that, I mean, for a junior, I think another thing that it's important is to be able to respect the constraint in a real world context. And on the job, I also expect them to ask about those constraints to make sure that they make sense. But in the exercise, maybe it's a good idea to also test that they are able to work with the constraint. And in the end, with a lot of people trying to enter the market as a junior, we need somehow something to filter people that cannot code. So that's why I would be a bit more expecting something in this kind of technical interview. And the interview itself would entirely be about the technical knowledge that comes from the exercise, but especially the curiosity, right? It would probably be more what do you want me to ask about the exercise, and to see what topics they come up with instead of the opposite, because Again, it's a junior. I cannot expect that they know design patterns, for example. Okay. Then you might decide that a mid role is a better suit for you. So you don't want a junior, maybe, but you also don't have the budget for a senior. That's a very likely situation. So, but of course, if you don't pay for a senior, you will not have a senior. So, what to expect from this kind of middle seniority role? I would expect, for example, that the person is fluent at least in a language or two, one of them being probably JavaScript, at least, if not TypeScript for the front end, and another one for the back end, whatever it is. Maybe not a deep expert in any of them, but knowing them, being fluent, being also able to maybe know some nuances of the languages, right? So being a bit vertical on the language they use it so far, maybe still not thinking about which are the best practices that can be used no matter which language you use. Another thing that I would look for is for sure the willing to learn and improve, which is always important, also in a senior or staff or any role, in my opinion. But in a mid role would be great because you want to help this person to become a senior, right? So you want a person that will grow fast anyway. I would also expect in this case the ability to discuss things in a more concrete way than a junior, even if it's still missing some kind of knowledge or deep knowledge about some things, but more proactivity in asking the right question, okay? And also the desire to start teaching, because, if you're a mid, there's always a junior, someone more junior than you that you can help. So the ability and the willingness to start teaching and sharing knowledge with everyone in the team that might be interested, that would be a good point for a mid, in my opinion. And about the interview, I would probably go with a similar exercise that I said before, still a real world exercise somehow, maybe with less constraint, to see which decision this supposed to be mid-level person will take, because that's an important thing. I expect more comprehension and a better ability in taking decision than a junior. I for sure would look for a code that works, but also for at least some idea of making the code more maintainable and readable, even if maybe going a bit too further. I might expect from a mid level in an interview that he might remove duplication too soon or make too complex abstraction in some point, making some mistakes that you can fix with experience and knowledge shared from a senior, right? So still some mistakes are allowed, but a step forward than a junior, and still the curiosity and the desire to understand why some things are better than others, right? Because as a mid, I think that the biggest thing you should desire is to become more trustable and more able to influence people with your ideas and your solution. So you should try to understand why things you're suggesting might have some issues, so that the next time you can take those issues in consideration. Starting also maybe to be curious about design patterns and technical practices is a good sign also in a mid role. Then we move to the senior role, which is the one I actually interviewed in the last weeks. I think that when it comes from a senior, the things I look for is the ability to coach others. The coach is not teaching, right? So it's not only about sharing technical knowledge, but also working together. The knowledge, of course, of the best practices and the best approaches for their specific verticality. I think that as a senior, it makes a pretty sense that you have already one vertical topic. For example, I prefer to look for a senior front end and a senior backend position. They can still work full stack if needed, but they are more expert in their specific field. So I expect a deeper knowledge in that topic, and I expect proactivity, ability to take decisions, ability to take trade-offs, ability to take the business in consideration, especially. Also, he's a senior, so he or she is a senior, so this person is probably starting to have bold opinions about some things. And It's super important when you start to have both opinions to also have and maintain the ability to put your ideas in discussion every day. Even if they are proven from years of experience, you still need to put them in discussion, maybe to confirm that they are still the best option, maybe sometimes to pick a new, better option. Okay. And another thing would be for the ability to maintain a software system under control over time. So from a senior, I expect the knowledge about technical practices, mainly continuous integration, automated test, or even better test-driven development, and all those practices that help a software system to remain maintainable over time. About the interview, I believe that for a senior role, it can be a bit less technical because um, enough created two different kind of exercises for the front end and for the back end. In this case, the front end is still a realistic use case with a Figma file to be developed, a simple Figma file with some fake APIs to provide the data. For the backend position, I even used a simple kata because all I want is that the competencies and skills about how to develop software in a sustainable way comes out from the exercise and then comes out from the discussion. So unless the exercise is a complete mess, 99% of people will have a technical interview after the exercise. And then in the interview, I would look for technical information, but most of all, knowledge about the importance of writing simple code, good design, readable code, automated tests, team approach. So not being a solo wolf, that's acceptable as soon as you are a junior, and maybe also a mid, but then as a senior, you necessarily need to be able to work as a team, which means being ready to work together in pair, in mob, shorten your branch live and working continuous integration, etc. Then, coming to the end of the episode, I want to share a couple of thoughts also about this new, let's say new, but in Italy is pretty new actually, staff kind of role, which is even beyond senior, right? I don't know if I like the idea of defining a staff role that is beyond senior, because, I mean, what's more than senior? I mean, I don't get it. I think it may make sense to create a sort of a ladder to identify different levels of seniority. So I prefer a senior 1, 2, 3, etc. approach than defining staff roles. And in general, beyond the senior role, what I expect to I still expect a people that is curious and willing to grow. We are talking about a technical ladder here, so you want to remain technical, so you need to also maintain the desire to keep learning. But then I also expect that people start to think about the ROI of their decisions and their development. So I think you should be at this point, you should be aware that if you want to develop something that costs a day and your day costs, let's say, 500 euro, but the feature will only bring 100 euro, then the ROI is negative and you shouldn't invest that day in developing that feature. So you should consider the cost of the work in your decisions. You should also be able to take trade-offs to reduce the cost of something, making it simpler, but still under control, right? So you don't reduce the scope by removing tests, for example, but by actually removing the complexity and making something simpler, right? To get the feedback sooner. I also expect that someone that is trying to be more than just a senior would proactively introduce and suggest improvement to the system and to the team, not only to a code level, but also to our organizational level, teamwork approach, and everything. And yeah, and as I said, in general, I prefer to create at this point, I would prefer to create some sort of a level approach, which is just a way to recognize that you're growing and recognize you with some, let's say, of your growth. Then if you want to change the role, you can become something a bit different, or you can become a technical leader. But yeah, as I said, I don't like the stuff definition much. I prefer the kind of level, but that's just an opinion. And so this was my approach, and I have to be honest that at least for the front end position that we already closed, I was pretty successful. I think we had some great candidates, and I think we got a big chance to hire some very great people. And I think that the approach made the difference. The feedback from the technical interview was super positive, both on the exercise and on my approach in the interview. And I think that this kind of approach for a senior can provide a better way to express themselves without feeling that they still have to prove they know how to code, which, I mean, I know that is hard today because there are a lot of people coming out from boot camps that believe they are ready for the work, and most of times they are not, and this is fault of the boot camps that create expectations that they cannot meet in the end. But I think it's a problem for companies hiring. But on the other side, I think we should treat seniors as seniors. Okay, they're adults, they know how to work, they already have a senior position, so treat them as a senior and try to understand if they really are a senior the way you expect them. If they're not, just pick someone else, but do not treat them as babies. That was my main driver for the approach. But I want to know what you think about this, because this is just my opinion. So let me know. Again, please, if you want to help me, just subscribe, share the episode with someone you think might be interested, and follow me on LinkedIn and come to the in the post where I shared the episode, because you can leave a comment there and start a discussion. And I think we are done for today. So until next time, happy coding.